Today we are going to talk about security. We have Staffbase's CISO, Fabian, that is going to spend some time talking about all about the best practices that relates to security and why it's so important when thinking about an employee application. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We've got a ton of great content that covers the full journey of deploying a branded employee app. Go to staffbase.com, click on resources, and select Employee App Guide. That's it. Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about why security is so important for an employee app. I think this is a really interesting topic. With over 80% of users are accessing information on mobile devices, understanding the risks that are involved and just having a strong awareness of security best practices is pretty paramount today. So today we're actually going to talk with Fabian, who is responsible for overseeing information security at Staffbase. We're going to talk about how security fits in with a branded employee app, and I really couldn't be happier to learn more from Fabian about this. I think this is going to be really exciting. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining.
Yes, thank you for the invitation, and I'm happy we have some cool talks about information security.
Absolutely. Nothing is cooler than information security. That is a real fact. That's a hard fact right there. So just jumping right into it. So people are using every communication channel they can really get their hands on. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and there's a whole slew of third-party chat apps that are kind of finding themselves in the workplace. They're really becoming this medium for communications. Does this have you worried?
It definitely does. It's a very critical topic for security, for information security, all these communication channels out there, because people are just using what they get their hands on to do the best they can, to achieve their goals pretty fast. And so all these different channels which are out there, which are used for business communication as well, just highlight the need of the employees. So it's always that they have something in mind they need to solve. They need to maybe react very fast on why they are using maybe WhatsApp or Facebook, chatting to someone who's not in their business communication channel or is not reachable in their business communication channel. It's one key point which we at information security are focusing on is to improve the daily work of the employee. So it's always that when they are not comply with some policies or something like that, like using WhatsApp for internal communication, which is not so cool, but they are not doing because they try to avoid policies. It's because they need to solve something. And that is what we are doing at information security. We are looking at the processes, looking at the tools, and trying to help them improving their daily work, their daily business work. And we are not trying to restrict anything by default. So it's always that we are looking into the situation and trying, okay, why is the employee doing something? And then we are just checking, okay, is this fine with our policies? And if not, how can we adapt policies? How can we adapt the tool chain to make the life easier for all people? And one very important topic is also that we need to raise the awareness for confidential content. So for example, it's totally fine to chat with your teammate in WhatsApp about, let's meet after work at 6 p.m. or something like that. It's pretty easy, but it might be not cool to share confidential or strictly confidential revenue or best business models or any critical stuff which should not be leaked outside. So that's also very important to give the employee a feeling on what they can share on which communication channel and which should be maybe in some approved tool there.
Excellent. And I can see that this would be something that gets exponentially more challenging as a business grows. So, if you're a scrappy startup, I can see that, if it's only 15 people in an organization, okay, we'll use whatever tool we can because we're all in the same room together, or we're very close knit, and that's fine. But as your organization starts to grow, and if you reach that point when you're really scaling quite dramatically, and you're in the hundreds, then the thousands, and then the tens of thousands, that scale that you were referring to before becomes almost impossible. And so that's where my guess is that you've probably seen organizations in a bit of a bind where maybe they were a little bit more free for people to use applications of their choice, but then as the organization grows, that security need becomes a lot more hardened because it becomes more difficult to manage. And so I was just curious if you've seen some real hurdles with organizations that were previously allowing more of a free form environment, and then this need to really, oh man, we got to button this up and deploy more policies and just be more security minded.
Yeah, I definitely see something there, because I'm in the lucky position to see maybe both sides. I'm here at Staffbase since 3 years around, so I started here where we were a very small team, and right now we are growing, and so we're becoming a bigger organization, which gets to the barrier that we need some more restrictions on tools we use and need to check everything a little bit deeper. So that's I have an internal view on this, but I also have an kind of an external view, because our customers coming to Staffbase and introducing a tool like Staffbase is always a new thing for the whole organization, because a lot of customers never used the software as service tools in the past, and right now they're exploring in this IT landscape where they need to change their whole policies about how they use software and stuff like that. So that's I think I have a good feeling on this, and what I see as a very big hurdle are you need to create the acceptance of the topic and the change for your employees. So when you start with a very small team, everybody is very streamlined and has a very good feeling on anything in the company. So everybody knows everything, more or less, but everybody's involved. And when you grow, there are experts, and an expert is hired and is doing his or her job to do something very specific, and that's good. That's why they are hired. But they are not hired all over for information security to achieve information security. But you need to create for them the need and the acceptance that they know, okay, why is information security so important? And it's not always to have a new position in your leaderboard somewhere where information security is in the job position. Because information are all over in the company, and we need to secure them. Mostly there. And so that's one of the key points, one of the hurdles. It's also that you, as I previously explained, is to understand the opposite, understand every stakeholder who's in your company. So when you're growing, there are a couple of stakeholders, like there's the senior management, maybe there's a normal employee, and everybody has a different need that they needs to get solved. And that's very important to create policies to understand these needs, to not just say, okay, that's our rule and everybody has to follow it. It's more like, okay, you have this need and another person has another need, and what would be the best fit to have a policy which fulfills every need and our security needs without making their life that worse. And a very hot point is also finding the right situation to create a policy for something. Yeah, you're just starting with 15 peoples and you do not need any policy at all. Yeah, you just say, okay, do this not, and that's fine. Yeah, it just works. And then you're growing. And at some point you identify, okay, everybody asks us, okay, what software can I use? And then you think, okay, right now it's maybe the right moment to create a good policy for this, so everybody can rely on, because people are just looking for this. They are looking for rules they can follow. All right, it's a kind of human nature, following policies and rules somewhere. Maybe also a very German thing, but that's just a side note. And yeah, so it's very hard for you as an information security to have a good feeling on when it's the right moment to create a policy for something, and when it's sometimes too early. You might overachieve something, but sometimes you're just in the right moment, and then one day later or so, someone says to you, hey, it's very good that you created this policy. I was just looking for something like that. And yeah, at the end, what is the biggest hurdle is communication. Yeah, you need to have a very good communication on what you change, what is new, why is this so important, and that's the key point. Yeah, you can lose so many when you do not a good communication, even for information security. But you can get them all on your side, or on the security side, when you just give them a good feeling why this is important, why they need this, and why this is important for your company.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. We've got a ton of great content that covers the full journey of deploying a branded employee app. Go to staffbase.com, click on resources, and select Employee App Guide. That's it. Best wishes, and back to the show. Yeah, just to expand on that, it seems like, especially when you're an organization and you're leveraging a technology like a branded employee application, you now have this tool that one of the major factors of it is being able to communicate in a different way. And so I imagine that really spending the time to think about how people should use the platform is a really good opportunity to convey those messages that you're just talking about. Like, hey, we have this communication platform now. People can be using it. It's great. We want people to integrate, but let me just provide you some education, some learning around what we're expecting. Here's what our policies say. Here's the type of information you shouldn't be sharing here as well. And I can imagine that that's an opportunity to just clarify. Now, I know for you internally, you leverage some of the capabilities for acknowledgement and just, hey, if there's something, can you walk me through a little bit of that? Like if there's a new security requirement or policy and you want to make sure that everybody confirms that they experience that, how do you use that with the branded employee app?
So yeah, I'm also in the lucky position that we have the right tool for communicating all that stuff. So that's it's easily said, like eat your own dog food, but it helps you very much understanding our needs and improving your own product. So that's I'm a total fan for eat your own dog food for stuff where it is necessary and where it makes sense. So what I do here at Staffbase is when we have kind of a new policy, we just make sure that it's just easily findable in our own employee app. Like, okay, the employee is just searching for something like, okay, something about information security, and she will just use the search, and then she should find the information she needs. Or even when she searches something for bring your own device or about passwords or something like that, they should find the right document. So that's one point, to have the information. It's kind of a static content in your application and up to date. But it's also necessary that you have a feeling on, okay, how many people read some update on it. Because you need to change your policies from time to time, because requirements change or some incidents happen, and where you say, okay, we need to adapt our policies to make this not happen anymore. And at this point, you just need to update some policy or create a new policy. And we have a kind of an acknowledge feature in our application. And so this helps us to, on the first step, makes it a very important topic. Because acknowledging something is not just, okay, you can read this, and when you have read this, we expect that you will follow it. So that's one level, and the next level of, okay, you have read this and you acknowledge that you have read this. So in case something happens and we say, okay, but it's not compliant to our policies, how could this happen? We can just check, okay, do you have read this, and or why do you were not compliant on it? And so this is a higher level for the acceptance. They know, okay, that's something very important. They need to read carefully and only need to accept when they read this. So that this is the second level there. And it also gives us on the compliance side the opportunity to check, okay, is this going to all the people who should read this? Or do we need to have a follow-up, or just check back with the people why they do not acknowledged? So one example in the past, I guess it was right before we get ISO 27001 certified. Every person was very eager to follow all the guidelines and policies, and they just acknowledge when they understand it and do not have questions. And at some point, there was some policy and people do not accept it, or if most people accept it, but a couple of people do not. And so I checked back with them, okay, well, what's wrong here? And then they said, oh yeah, I have some problem here. I do not understand this, or I cannot be compliant with this. Can we have a checkup here on a personal level, how we can fulfill our policies? And that helped us very much to improve the information security in the whole organization. Because there you have a kind of a feedback channel. It's not just pushing out content. It's also having a feedback channel, even when it's just the Reddit button is there.
Excellent. That's really helpful. So yeah, it allows you to just, so if I'm in information security or just IT in general, depending on the size of the organization, and I know that my organization has now deployed a branded employee app, I now have a gateway to communicate to folks in a different way. And like to your point, you're able to see who has acknowledged, which is great. That's an excellent resource in case you need to, leverage that in an unfortunate situation. But then on the other hand, you can also see who hasn't, and you can reach out to those folks and say, hey, walk me through, and that's just to your point, they had maybe an issue with how they felt like they could not comply because of something that their job function requires them to do. That's great. That's really interesting. And actually, so with that next question, this expansion of, probably one of the more interesting aspects of a branded employee app is that it's very much focused on a mobile first environment. And most of the organizations I know that at least we work with are, they have a BYOD policy. And so that really changes the whole framework of security. It's no longer a machine that you're handing out, that you're in control of, that you're managing. And now there's a lot of trust, and you have this application in front of you now that you're trusting them to leverage. So how, what are some of these biggest challenges that you've come across when you're trying to protect your IP, but you do have a BYOD policy in place?
Yeah, with bring your own device policies, the first step is always that your IT department and your security departments lose full control of your IT. Yeah, so that's the first step, and there are a couple of hurdles you need to take for bring your own device policy. But at the end, what is very important is that you give the security in the hands of the employee, and that's all over. It's very important to give the employee the responsibility about the security. It's not that you say, okay, here's your device, just take it, and you can only do what we allow you to do, because at this point they just feel like they are in a bubble. Yeah, they are protected from everything outside, and they cannot harm anything. So there are so many technical limitations which help them to which is on the one side good, but on the other side, it's not that good because people do not use their brain to think about security. So yeah, just one example, or attacks are going in your organization, like it's social engineering is rising and something like that, and that's nothing you can maybe protect with technical limitations. You need to raise awareness and something like that. And with bring your own device policies, yeah, you're starting to give the employee responsibility on their own for information security, because you cannot ensure anything on their private device, but you can raise the awareness that they know, okay, I need to have a passcode protection. I need to have HTTP encryption, and I didn't need to lock my screen even on my private devices and something like that. And with all these, they get more aware about security in general. And so I see there a big advantage with a BYOD policy, giving the employee the responsibility and the chance to contribute to information security, and not give them like, okay, you need to check this and then it's done. They need to work on it on their own.
Yeah, and I mean, a nice output that can also come of this is you're through education, through these policies, through checking on them, these people are learning how to protect themselves better too. You know, because especially on their personal devices, if they're following these best practices for organizations to protect the organizational IP, they're also protecting their own devices and their own information, which is kind of a nice additional benefit of that. You said something really interesting offline about how a branded employee app enables a workforce to communicate on one level with security in mind. And I thought that was really an interesting statement. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
All right, I'm happy that I said something so cool, but yeah, definitely. So yeah, the key point is actually that as I introduced in the beginning, is there's a need of communication. That's always there. That's kind of human nature to communicate with people, and even in the workforce, it's more important to communicate with each other. And so yeah, the first step is there's a very big need. And that's for communication. It's a kind of top-down communication, but also side-to-side communication, and as well, yeah, bottom-up communication. Why not? Yeah, so that's all there. Yeah, it exists in every company, regardless of size, regardless of culture, and they're also on their business. Yeah, it's there. And what a branded employee app offers is a very easy way for communicating. Yeah, everybody can download the application and they can chat with each other regardless on their position, on their department, and stuff like that. So there's a very easy way for exchange. There's a couple of cool features for just share knowledge also, to help each other, making their business much more efficient. So that's exists all there. And what a very good thing in terms of security is, when you offer such a cool tool for communicating, for very easy communication, the employee will not look for another tool to reach out with his colleagues or her colleagues. Because when every human is lazy, that's maybe true in most terms, and that's why we are evolved how we are right now. Yeah, we're always looking like improving our work to make it easier and being more efficient. And so at this point, when I already have a very good tool for communicating with my colleagues, with my teammates, with my employees, I do not need to look for another tool, which would be a resource I can save and just use a very cool branded employee app there.
Excellent. That's great. So yeah, it's, you know, you create this sense of ease that just it sort of evokes the laziness. I like that. I like that part, because, you know, when you have a tool that does the job, you're not looking for something else to do it, because you're just rather stay. The whole point around that is being efficient and staying on the course. If it works, if it does exactly what I need it to do, fantastic. I'm not going to elaborate on it. That's great. So, okay. One thing that we were talking a little bit before we actually started recording was this idea of there's sort of a frame of mind that gets shifted when you're using a branded employee application. So if you're an organization and you're deploying it, you're telling you're giving an organization, the staff of an organization, an expectation that, okay, if I click on this thing that has my company logo on it, it's my company, it's branded, that sort of sets the tone that this is trusted. And I'm curious where you see that differ from other tools that are not branded, such as, there's different communications tools, there's social media tools, et cetera, that can, there are certain pieces of that could accomplish some of the same tasks, but there's a bit of a misperception, I think, of how people, I'm not saying that correctly, of how you're looking at the two. Like, one says my company name, the other is not, is just a completely different company. I'm curious where you see any dynamic or shift between those perceptions.
Yeah, so I think there's one big benefit for a branded employee app is that every employee will recognize it as their own app. They feel more responsible for content they share within, and also when they get content from that, they know, okay, it's from the company, and know about, okay, how they can share it maybe to friends or to family or something like that. Even with the bring your own device policies and in the background, I have my private phone with a couple of apps on it. It's very easy for me to identify my company app with the branded logo instead of any other app where I see just like Facebook. Or Facebook also offers some business communication already, but it's very hard for the employee to identify the difference between their private Facebook stream and their business Facebook stream and stuff like that. And there, we think it's much better to have it very easy for the employee to know, okay, this is my company, see my logo of my company, and then I know everything which is in there is business related. So I know, okay, I can share their business related stuff, but I should not get out business stuff and share it with others outside the business.
Right. Excellent. That's great. And I could even see certain departments, a big difference is if you're leveraging another tool that's not branded, it's unintentionally easy to share the wrong information in the wrong places, right? I could see that happening, likely unintentionally. You're not even realizing that you're sharing something that shouldn't be shared. Whereas it's much more, there's a nice wrapper of protection around that branded application. You can work within the realm of it and feel safe that you're doing the right thing, and there's a lot less opportunity for you to do something that you shouldn't because of the perimeters that are put around that. That's great. So one of the final questions I want to ask you is, where do you see security needs heading? Like, what is this next step? So I feel like most enterprises are playing catch up. Quite frankly, my former life, I spent a lot of time in IT, and I always felt like it was always pulling. I was always pulling people to say, please consider this, consider this. So what's the next big risk you see that needs to be tackled today?
Yeah, what I really see there is the need of protection against social engineering. So that's one of the key threats which is raising more and more. We're already seeing this here at Staffbase, and we are just a couple of hundred employees, and I could really imagine that this would be a bigger threat for bigger companies already, and why this is so important, I see there are two things. One is hardening equipment, is pretty easy. Okay, you can install a good firewall, you can harden the software, you can install security updates, etc., etc. So that's something, okay, you can establish with very good equipment. But at the end, you always need humans, and that's very good, I would say. But yeah, there's still some risks at the end for when humans are involved. That's just normal. And so social engineering is focusing on the human factor in an IT system or in a security system at the end. And yeah, while we are just here trying to harden our systems, we need also to make sure that people are aware of social engineering, of all its aspects. Yeah, it starts with a very easy phishing email, but ends up with a friend which is coming around, going into your office and just stealing something. So there are different levels of social engineering, and I guess they're rising more and more in the future. And the only thing you can do against this is raise the awareness for people to just think twice, to not just do their work like, oh, I need to rush through all my emails, I need to answer everything, and there's something from my boss, and I just need to follow it blindly. That's very critical for social engineering. You always need to think twice about something you would do, and that's the only thing how you can do it at the moment. And so this would be the next level on risk where we need to deal with here.
Excellent. That's I couldn't agree more in terms of just the concern there, and it's something that I think that constant education and like the communication that you talked about. It's I think earlier when you were saying that at the end of the day, the dependency for security is really in the hands of the folks that on their personal devices. And so with that, the demand to constantly be educating, but finding a way to educate in a way that it's not overwhelming or noisy, and it's relatable, and it's something that's actionable in a way. I don't envy you for that. That is a challenge. That's a endless, potentially thankless at times challenge. But that's really interesting. I think this is going to help out a lot of people that are in the process of deploying or considering a branded employee application, and just being aware that, my biggest takeaways right here are: one, you're providing IT a new opportunity to share really pertinent information in a very easy way. And you can get insight into that communication that probably you didn't have access to before. And you opening up new opportunities to reach out to people that maybe haven't followed through, and it kind of allows you to isolate different groups of people that you can find different plans of actions for. And then lastly, it allows you to embrace the demand for BYOD and being able to do work on my personal device, but in a way that is as safe as possible. This has been very helpful. Fabian, thank you so much for your time. And I hope that we can do another one of these. I feel like this, after learning from you today, I feel like we might need to do another one in the not too distant future, and we'll focus on maybe another aspect of this. But if you're interested, I'm interested for sure.
Oh yeah. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was much fun, and looking forward for a new episode about security.
Great, let's do it. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We've got a ton of great content that covers the full journey of deploying a branded employee app. Go to staffbase.com, click on resources, and select Employee App Guide. That's it.